Hi, I'm Brendon, and welcome to my tropical garden.
Plant people, how are we today? For those of you that had never met me before, I am Sam and this is
Brendon.
And Brendon, what is your Instagram handle?
So my Instagram handle is Brendon's Plants, or at Brendon's Plants.
Yes, and we are doing something super exciting today. I've actually been in contact being like, can we please do some filming at your place? And today is finally the day where a gang of us from Melbourne have finally come up to Sydney, particularly for the Collectors Plant Fair. And luckily we've had Brendon so kindly going to be showing us and touring his beautiful garden outside. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Well, thanks for coming over, Sam. This is my outdoor Aroid garden that I have here in Sydney. Been growing Aroids probably since around 2019, and obviously during the pandemic it kind of ramped up a lot. I do have an indoor space where I grow my plants, but this outdoor Aroid garden kind of was an extrapolation of that space when I ran out of growing room. That's where the plants kind of then ended up, and so I've kind of been experimenting with growing Aroids outside here in Sydney, and this is kind of the end result. What happened was about the end of 21 or the summer of 21, I actually made all these poles and then put the philodendrons on the poles, and then just kind of, it was a bit of trial and error to see what would grow and what didn't grow. But these are what you see now as the sort of survivors. I've had these Aroids growing out here probably for the last 3 or 4 years now, and some of them have kind of outgrown the space that they're in and probably have reached close to maturity, but it actually just gives me so much joy to actually see them thrive, not only survive but thrive outside here. So this was a bit of an accident, this Monstera aurea. I actually don't know if it's a small form or a large form. I actually think it's a small form that's just mature, and that was just something I threw outside to give me more indoor space, and it kind of then just attached itself to the fence without me actually having to do anything. And now it's, you can see, reached the top of the fence. Obviously the aurea, the colour comes out more of like a lime, and then it sort of matures to this really beautiful yellow variegation that you can see. It actually flowered for the first time this year. I have no idea what's going to happen with them because I didn't pollinate them, so whether or not they turn into viable seeds, or I actually might eat them because I'm actually curious to see how they taste. And you can kind of see that this was a reverted Monstera aurea, which kind of is just growing side by side with the aurea, but I really love the contrast and just how they've kind of grown in sync and in tandem with each other and sort of have matured with each other at the same time. So I really love how they're kind of now sort of looking down on the rest of the garden. And next to the aurea is actually Glorious, which is a hybrid of Melanochrysum and Gloriose, which doesn't do too badly, but it's probably just not getting enough light in this actual space. I've got a few Alocasias down here that I probably will take inside, but this is a pink dragon. This is also under here a variegated Alocasia zebrina, but I'll probably end up taking these inside, but these sort of work really well in this sort of like low light areas. What I do really love is all the Colocasias. So I bought a lot of these Colocasias from growers in Queensland, and I wasn't actually sure how they would do in a Sydney winter, because at the peak of winter in July, probably gets in the middle of the night to about 2 to 4 degrees, and that's pretty cold, but these Colocasias seem to actually continue to grow. They don't die off, but they still retain some leaves, but obviously the volume of them gets a bit smaller. But the one I absolutely love is this Mojito, which is probably one of my favourite Colocasias, and this does really well in a Sydney winter, and which is something that I was really surprised about. There's obviously like a little bit of a water vessel down here, and that's what they're growing in. So they're growing in this water vessel. There's a few tadpoles. Actually, there's a small little rice fish in there as well. But yeah, that's how the Colocasias grow. This one is...
Midori sour?
That's it, Midori sour. Thank you for reminding me, because I almost forgot for a second. Yeah, so this is Midori sour, which is really cute because it has this sort of like little pink sinus, and that's how you can kind of tell that this is a Midori sour. Plus it also has sort of green coloured petioles. I kind of liked playing with different indoor plants to create this sort of volume of leaves and space. And so we've got like the blue ginger, which I absolutely love, and sort of just flowering really profusely at the moment, and kind of gives a really nice contrast. This plant is probably the one that I've had the most difficulty acclimating to growing outside, which is the Florida Beauty. So every year it's done a little bit better than the last year, and this is probably getting to a mature sized leaf now, but it's absolutely, in my opinion, just a really lovely plant, just in terms of the variegation and the mature leaf shape.
Yeah, the shape's awesome.
It tends to not like winter. So every winter I've had, you can kind of see, Sam, the actual tip has rotted off. So the tip rotted in winter, and then it reshot, and then it rotted again last winter, and now it's reshot. So I don't actually know what's going to happen this winter, but I'm hoping that the tip doesn't rot again. But it's the only plant here that tends to really not like the cold. Yeah. So I find that the arubescens type philodendrons tend to be really hardy and much more tolerant of the colder conditions, and that's really the time that you have to be careful when trying to grow aroids outside. It's, will they survive winter? Because if they don't survive winter, then obviously you don't have a plant to continue growing in spring and summer. So this is obviously, I mean, this is a white princess, and you can kind of see that, like, obviously outside the variegation browns a little bit more. This is exposed to the sky, so it gets rainwater, and you can kind of see that it's not doing too badly. The other plant that I really, really love is Philodendron ilmanii. It actually, I think, really likes the cold. It's one of the few plants that will keep putting out leaves during winter, and really doesn't show any signs of slowing down. The other one that I have that I absolutely love is the Jose Bueno.
Oh my gosh. These two plants are like iconic, like Alocasia and Variegated, and then these guys.
Yeah, so the Jose Bueno, it's probably my favourite plant of everything here in this garden, just because it's so hardy, and you kind of want a plant that will grow. You don't want to grow something that will just, not grow well for you, and this grows really, really well. Has a really nice variegation that kind of fades off, but when the new leaf comes out, it's actually like the paddle shape with this sort of like patchy variegation is just stunning. And the great thing about growing this outside under this light is actually the internode spacing of the plant has actually improved, so it looks much more impressive because the internode space is short, and the leaves kind of are then much more compact. So it kind of has this almost like a palm, like a...
Mine do not look like
yeah. So it kind of grows like a palm, actually. Like, it's kind of got a trunk, and then the leaves are sort of at the top, sort of branching out on these like long petioles and these really nice paddle-shaped leaves. So,
do you remember at what stage you put this outside? Like the leaf? Which one?
Oh yeah, so when I put this outside, I mean, it's held onto the lower leaves for a really long time. So some of them have obviously fallen off, but it was about this size, the leaf, when I put it outside.
No way.
Yeah, and then gradually the leaf, obviously as a plant matures, the leaves get bigger and bigger.
I mean, if you're doing things right.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, super easy to grow, doesn't demand any extra attention, and when it gets to this maturity with such a short internode space, I think it just looks really, really good. And obviously the Monsteras do really well outside. Like, I mean, you see them growing around Sydney everywhere anyway, so they were just a little bit of an addition here. Like, these ties just, they're very, very easy to grow and don't require any extra effort. And this is kind of where I've just thrown everything that I wasn't sure if it would survive outside, but
Clearly has.
Yeah, like this, some people call it tomatophyllum, but Philodendron by pinophytum, I think, or like the hope. Yeah, but I think it's now been reclassified back to Philodendron. That does fine outside. Obviously all the Syngoniums. The Anthurium andrianums are probably the only Anthuriums I can really grow outside. This one's variegated because I love my variegated plants.
Even like the colour of this guy.
Yeah, even the colour of the new leaf. So I'd like to grow more Anthuriums outside. It's challenging. Really, you can't grow the velvets outside at all. Maybe in the height of summer, but definitely not through winter. So obviously the matte-leaved ones will survive, and Andrianums are probably the easiest Anthurium I can get to grow out here.
What about this one?
Oh, this is actually a Colocasia.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah,
it's so stunning.
yeah. So this is Black Magic, which, yeah, it does really well.
You almost can't see it just because it's so dark.
And one other thing I wanted to quickly talk about were my Caladiums, which...
It's not winter yet.
Yeah, no, actually they're doing okay. Like the Caladiums, they don't come up as early as they would in Queensland. I actually got most of these from private sellers, and some of them I got in Queensland as well. They probably don't come out as early. Like they probably start growing around October time, and then they probably start going to sleep around May. And that's when I winter them all. So I normally keep them in their pots and just put them in a warm garage, basically, not here, and then just let them winter. And then most of them actually have come back. So, but I've got some really, really fun ones. I'll just start with this one. So this one's like Thai Beauty, which is, you know, pretty standard.
Colour is so good.
This one's Harlequin, which is sort of like this like pinky splashy. This one kind of got a bit damaged in the rain, but this is Red Beret, or what some people call Red Beret, which is again sort of like this red splashy colours.
So deep in colour.
This one's Splash of Wine.
Cute.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of the strawberry.
Yes, which is next to a strawberry star. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. So, yeah, and obviously there's a lot of these unnamed hybrids, you know, just like hybrids. Oh, and this is my clavatum.
Oh, this thing is insane.
Which I'm actually quite happy that this is growing outside in Sydney, because I have seen a lot of these in cans and with private growers. But yeah, that's my clavatum.
I love it.
Which is a species Caladium. And then just a few other things which I do like as well. So this is my variegated Ficus triangularis. I got this last year in summer, so I don't know if this is going to survive winter, but this is actually a street plant in Singapore, and you see it everywhere just lining the streets. So I don't know. I think it actually likes the heat, so I don't know if it's going to survive. I might take it indoors, but this one.
It's looking all right.
Yeah, so this is a variegated fiddle leaf fig. This actually survived winter, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, so this I really love. Actually, it does better outside.
100%,
yeah.
100%.
So I can grow this much better.
Ficus outside.
Yeah, outside than I can grow it inside. Oh, and then the other thing I want to talk about is I have just thrown some Illmanii when I ran out of space.
Oh, it's wild. It's awesome.
And they grow really well. Actually, I think they much prefer the cold because they grow so well out here. And they actually make a really great ground cover plant, because I've got a whole bunch over here as well. You may want to see. So yeah, so these are just my whole collection of Illmanii. Next to, again, my Colocasia pots, which I absolutely love. I don't really do much to them. I barely, they just get rainwater. I barely look after them, and they are just growing like a weed.
It's insane. It's perfect for out here, for sure.
And then another inspo I have for my garden is, so I've been sort of growing and breeding Japanese rice fish for a number of years. Obviously these originated in Japan in their rice fields, and they're actually a really great outdoor fish because they can tolerate really, really cold temperatures as well as really warm temperatures. So you can leave them out here like goldfish and they will survive the winter. And if you've ever been to Japan, what sometimes you see in people's houses or outside their houses, they'll have a water pot just with rice fish as part of their garden. So I've kind of sort of replicated that as well. So, and that's kind of where all the Colocasias come from. So this is, it's limeade actually. And then this one is Milky Way. And then I've got some Pharaoh's Mask, which are sort of just right at the back. I mean, they grow much bigger, but they still have this really cool
shape.
Yeah, involuted shape. Which is where obviously the name Pharaoh's Mask comes from. And then I know I threw my Syngonium out here, and it sort of just attached itself to the wall. This is a Syngonium. Yeah, it's my Syngonium here. Actually, doing really well out here. Yeah.
The ones that I've got at home just don't look like this. Mine go green or revert. This one's insane.
Yeah, so it actually has, and it's obviously the leaf has started to...
have its ears.
Yeah, mature, so it's sort of now trilobed. What do they call that when the leaf gets to maturity?
I'm not sure.
There's a special name, I'll remind myself. So basically when the leaf starts to mature and actually change shape. Yeah, so obviously from that sort of like arrow shape to the trilobe shape. So yeah.
Do you have any more Syngoniums in here?
I do actually. I have, this is again another mojito. That's just Syngonium panda.
Oh, cutie.
I did throw mine, it's not doing super well. This is Syngonium.
Confetti? Milk confetti?
No, not milk confetti.
So what are you called? Tri-color thing?
No, it's not tricolor.
No?
It's the one that's you can add it at the bottom when I remember the name.
You can tell me in the future, and then I get Leanne.
Yeah.
How about this guy? Because I know that he's
Oh,
not an
yeah, so this is not an Aroid. This is actually just a Variegated impatiens, which is a really great low light plant, which actually has these really cute little pink flowers. But that's kind of what I wanted to grow out here, just things that were, because this obviously does get a lot of shade, so, you know, more shade loving plants that are traditionally your indoor plants, but that can grow out here, kind of like your Rexes, which surprisingly actually survive the winter, like here as well.
I can never get begonia to work for me.
Oh, begonia, yeah. I can grow Rexes. Beyond that, I'm a little bit challenged. Oh, and this, what do you call this again? You might help.
Oh, Maranta?
Yes, Maranta.
The variegated Maranta.
Yeah, my variegated Maranta actually grows so well outside, and even in winter as well. So if you're looking for a plant that can survive some of the winter, Maranta actually, I've seen it planted in people's gardens, and it's growing like a weed. So yeah, that can grow outside pretty well.
Did we talk about this guy? Do you remember?
Oh no, we haven't. So this is actually one of the few Alocasias that will grow outside. Again,
of course, you got to have the variegated one.
Yes, I had to have the variegated. So this is Alocasia cuculata, which most of my inspiration for what can grow outside has been based upon what I've seen in other people's gardens. So I've seen this growing in like council gardens and in other gardens around Redfern and Newtown, and it's one of the few Alocasias that actually will tolerate the cold, because there are very few that will actually not go dormant, but this one won't go dormant if you're thinking about putting something outside. This is more for Sydney and probably anything north of here. South of here, I can't comment on.
No way. There's no way we could accomplish this outside.
Yeah, but this is actually I think it's a really great Alocasia if you're looking just for something that's a little bit different. This one is called banana split. Yeah, so the when it's got this yellow variegation, they actually call it Alocasia cuculata banana split.
That's so cute.
You can kind of see this was my perfect banana split leaf. Yeah, which I have on my Instagram, but it kind of, obviously when plants grow outside, variegation suffers, and you can kind of see the leaf has melted away. And almost like this one, but again, the leaf kind of melted away. So, which is kind of...
That's interesting though, because it looks like it's almost been bitten or eaten.
Yeah, so it could have been a slug. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past it, because, you know, the other thing I don't do out here is I don't use any pesticides.
Really?
Yeah, so I just don't like to use pesticides out here, just because I've got fish, we've got tadpoles, we've got frogs, and so I don't really like to use any sprays. So anything that can survive and fend for itself, it just fends for itself.
Right.
Yeah, otherwise, I don't know if, hold on. I don't know if it's gonna be here. I used to have a resident praying mantis that would just stay here all the time. That's fake, by the way. Yeah, that's fake.
Don't tell me that's real.
But I have a resident praying mantis which is half the reason why I don't want to spray either, because they're so cute and they kind of end up becoming like pets. Yeah. But last time I saw my resident praying mantis, there it is, my resident praying mantis.
Oh my gosh, it's like on cue.
Yes, there it is, my resident praying mantis.
Oh my god, that's so cute. That is so funny as soon as you said it.
Yeah.
Hello?
So that's half the reason why I also don't like to use any chemical sprays, anything just fends for itself here. Last time I saw him, he was before I left for Japan, he was on the Monstera leaves. Then obviously we were gone for 3 weeks and we just got back and I was like, where did he go? But then the other day I saw him here, and so they tend not to really
move around. Yeah,
move around, which is really surprising. So once they find a spot, you know, they just stay there for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I know, look, he's so cute.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
He's almost camouflaged.
Yeah.
Wow. He's just chilling. Yeah, because
And
I
you
saw
can-
this
yeah.
before. And
Yeah,
I was
that's-
like, no way.
That's fake. That's fake.
Yeah, it's
And then
too big.
we've got some, obviously, like these are striped marsh frogs that just breed in the garden all the time, and so I don't really want to disrupt the frogs, their breeding cycle, the ecosystem that we have here. So this room is where my plant journey actually started, and you can kind of see the plants have now spilled out of the balcony where I initially had my indoor plants. So basically, that was an enclosed balcony space that I converted to an indoor growing space, and I built the whole thing myself. So I installed all the lights, there's shelving in there. I probably would do it slightly differently now that I know how the plants grow, because some of my energies aren't well focused here because I have a lot of plants growing outside, but this is kind of how it all started. And then you can see I bought a lot of seeds and I don't know what to do with them, so I don't really want to throw them out. So I've just kind of created like lights and tubs, basically just to keep them alive whilst I decide what I want to do with them. Yeah, you can kind of see that tubs are a really good way to keep your plants alive if you are running out of space or you don't have a tent. This is a little hack I did. So I bought this tub from Bunnings and I installed just a cheap LED light to just keep the plants alive. Actually, the plants do okay. The Anthuriums tend to grow in this little setup, so it's not such a bad idea. Obviously, the leaves get a little bit squashed up, but at least they stay alive.
Yeah, my favourite thing that you were saying before is that you can literally stack them.
Yeah, so you can stack them. So the best part about this is that you can actually stack the boxes on top of each other. They have a light source, and you can put them into a little corner if you're running out of space. Yeah.
Yeah, such a great hack. And then you can see like the little holes.
And I've got some of my really cool variegated plants, which I tend to have a real interest in. This is I guess you call it Philodendron hope or Tomatophyllum hope. This is, well, that's the same plant. This is a variegated mame, which you can kind of see here. This down here this one is a variegated melanochrysum, and this one is a variegated Alocasia saurian.
Which I know where you got that
Yes,
from.
I got this from Cairns, from a grower in Cairns, which almost died on me, which is why it's back in here, but it's actually looking okay now. I do have a really cool plant. I don't know if you can zoom in here.
Yeah.
There, that's a variegated Philodendron panduriform.
So cool.
And this is another Alocasia variegated Friedeck aurea.
Amazing.
And then my pink princesses, which are in here.
They're not poo princess.
No, they're really quite pink.
Yeah, that one's a great one.
Yeah. So I've just got some fun stuff growing in tubs,
Love it.
which they can. And then that's the plant space. It's all going to be changed anyway. So
I love
everyone loves that. This
so cool.
All the Hoyas that grow there, which do suffer a little bit when it's super hot in here because it actually gets really, really hot.
So this is where you mostly keep your velvety things that go outside, yeah?
So this is just an interim space because I will be building a greenhouse in the future, but for now this is kind of where the plants go before I decide to chuck them outside. Yeah, so two really cool things. So this is actually a variegated whippleway. So not a variegated domesticum, but a variegated whippleway. But whippleway itself is a sport form of domesticum. So the variegation is actually, I describe it as whipple variegation because it's slightly different to a variegated domesticum, which is that sort of like aurea variegation. And then this is a variegated squamiferum, which I actually got from the Collectors Plant Fair last year.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So I'm just propagating that. Obviously that's the rugosum.
Oh yeah, I just realised that it's in water.
Oh yeah, that's just propagating in water. What else is fun in here? Oh,
more of your...
Yeah, more variegated whipple. This is a variegated jungle fever as a TC plant.
So cute.
Yeah, I wish they were just in better condition, but I'm sorry.
Oh my god, relax. Nah, this is definitely my favourite. This Hoya hanging.
I love this, the way the Hoyas hang from here. I just wish they were a little bit fuller, but obviously...
I mean, it takes time, right?
Yeah, it takes time and also obviously effort, but they're looking all right.
And the view from up here. Hello, beautiful ones. So cool. How many years have you been collecting, and what got you into Aroids and other tropical plants?
Yeah, so I think I bought my first, in inverted commas, rare Aroid in 2019. And that kind of kick-started my tropical plant growing phase, I guess, and which has kind of continued up until this day. So the first plant I bought, like everyone, was a variegated Monstera. So
That was not everyone. Okay, I think that's just you and a me.
yeah, so my first, and I remember there was a Sydney grower who used to have these markets in Newtown. Her name was Maitharani, and I was talking to her one day about a variegated Monstera, and she told me the only place you can buy it from is eBay. So look on eBay, but you're going to be paying a few $100s. And back then,
Especially back then.
yeah. So this was about 2019. So paying a few $100s for an indoor plant kind of seemed a little bit outrageous to me, but then I started seeing more and more photos on Instagram, and then that's kind of where I kind of got hooked,
Like so many of us.
Yeah, like so many people. Yeah, so just like the original plant phase. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into sort of tropical plants. And I guess the other thing is, like, I grew up in a big house with a big garden, so I always had a passion for gardening, but the type of plants that I used to grow, and I've been gardening since I was like a little kid, was sort of like the sort of very English style. So, like your camellias, your magnolias, your azaleas, your spring flowering bulbs, all those type of like very traditional English garden plants. But when we moved here to the inner city and we didn't have any space to grow those plants, that's how I started growing indoor plants, because that kind of then, we had a balcony which I've converted to a hot room, and I basically used that as a trial and error or testing ground to grow indoor plants, because I didn't know how to grow indoor plants before that time. Like, I always thought they were very finicky. I bought an Anthurium andrianum that died within like 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, well, I can't do this. so yeah, that's basically how I got into it.
Yeah, and then what inspired you to plant them outside?
So what inspired me to plant them outside was actually lack of space. So I don't have a huge indoor growing space, which kind of is counterintuitive to the whole reason why I got into indoor plants, was to have them indoors. But then what I found was I wanted to grow these indoor plants to maturity. I wanted to see what they look like, in mature form. And watching plants grow is actually a really big, it gives me a lot of enjoyment, not just seeing them, but also seeing how they grow. And so part of me was very curious, because, a lot of growers now that you watch, they put their philodendrons on poles, and then you can really see how they mature. And that was really quite a big motivation for me. And then picking and choosing which philodendrons and which aroids can grow outside was then another challenge for me, which I really enjoyed.
Going off the challenges, what is the hardest lesson you've learned from outdoor gardening?
The hardest lesson I've learnt from outdoor gardening is a philodendron might be looking okay, or an aroid might be looking okay, but if it's too cold, it will melt and rot on you in the matter of days. So that's probably the hardest thing. So just being aware that the plant that you have may not survive the really cold conditions, even though you think it might have survived most of winter. It just takes one really cold night for the plant just to die on you. And plants that I've tried outside that haven't worked would be Bilietiae, Ring of Fire. Those I've tried several times, and they do not like the cold.
Bilietiae, I thought it would be fine.
Yeah, Bilietiae I've tried to grow several times outside, and maybe it just wasn't mature enough. The other thing about growing plants outside is you can't just put, obviously, immature philodendrons or immature aroids outside. You have to get them to a certain size indoors before you transfer them outside. And I would say the best time to transfer them outside would be at the end of spring or in early summer, to really give them that ability to acclimate. They will go into a state of hibernation, so they don't grow, and it's sort of like an arrested period where they don't grow, and you kind of have about a 3 or 4 month break where they're not really growing, but they're not really doing anything
kind
either.
Kind of stagnant.
Yeah, kind of stagnant. Yeah, it kind of gives you a break as well. But that's I guess the crucial time, because tips can rot, leaves can fall off, and you really have to pay attention to what is the plant doing, and is it really going to be hardy enough to survive those really cold temperatures. Yeah.
Can you give any advice to collectors that wish to do this with their gardens?
Sure. I would say my best advice would be pick a plant that grows well indoors, that doesn't require any heating during winter. So if you have an Aroid or any sort of indoor plant that seems to do okay without any extra heating, that's somewhat mature, then you could probably put that outside. It's really variable because some plants that I thought would be okay haven't, and other plants that I didn't think would survive have actually really thrived outside.
How do you manage and cope during winters? I feel like a lot of people will be asking like this specific question.
I would say that during winter, it's mainly the temperature. So it's the temperature that is the real thing that you have to be mindful of. And obviously the plants have to be somewhat sheltered, like you can't have them out in the open.
Wind.
Yeah, too much wind, yeah. My plants are quite sheltered. We live in an area where there's lots of houses very close to each other, so you have shared walls, so you kind of have this sort of microclimate. So the heat is probably maintained by the walls, and the plants probably do have a bit of a buffer.
What plants would you recommend in achieving a garden like this?
Plants that I think would do really well would be any of your Monstera deliciosus. So even the variegated ones, the Thai constellations, and any Arubicins philodendron. So pink princess, white princess, those big leaved philodendrons that are a bit more matte do really well. And actually, it's a bit costly, but Philodendron ilmanii does really well outside. It's actually a very cool climate growing philodendron. Oh, and the one that I didn't show you actually, which I should have, was the rugosum. My rugosum's outside. Rugosum is actually outside, and that does really well outside. I forgot, sorry, it was tucked away. So that was one of the plants that I didn't expect to do well outside.
Same.
Yeah, but the rugosum does really well outside. It's much more cold tolerant than you would anticipate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's just the texture. As soon as it's not like anything corrugated, I'm like, you fussy.
Yeah. So, and I would say that the velvet Aroids are probably not well suited to be grown outside. I think it's got to do with the leaf texture. The more matte the leaf is, the probably better it will survive outside. But anything that's velvet probably requires higher humidity and that doesn't really do well. You may find that it grows okay during summer, but certainly not in winter. So yeah.
I think there's something to do with like the water, whether it's like water repellent and it's just like slides off versus like
exactly, the velvet texture of the leaf. So those type of plants would be like, your melanochrysum, definitely not.
Which is surprising actually in my head.
Yeah. Actually, the only one that you probably could grow is mycans, because mycans does that funny thing where
it's velvety at first and then...
Yeah. So when it's juvenile, it's velvety, but when it's mature, it's matte.
Yeah.
So you could probably grow a mycans outside. Depends.
It would go wild.
Yeah. Because I've seen it growing outside. Obviously, you see it growing wild, in Far North Queensland, that's... So it probably could grow outside. Yeah. But anything velvety, generally, I would steer clear of. Yep.
Totally. So, if you could go back in time and do it all over again, what would you tell your past self?
About my plants?
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole garden.
That's a good question. I would probably say it's a journey. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to feel like you've made bad plant buying choices just because of how the whole plant, the prices of plants have fluctuated a lot, before COVID, during COVID, after COVID. And basically you should buy plants because you love them, not because you think you're going to make money off them. You got to figure out where your passion is. And if you're growing them because you think you're going to make a quick buck, I think that's not sustainable. So what I would tell myself is that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to probably spend more money than you want to, but you're going to get a lot of enjoyment from it. And you're going to kill a lot of plants. So
the learning curve is steep.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, so I give myself a rule of 3. I kill it 3 times, then that's probably not for me.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I should also implement this.
Yeah. And sometimes after the 3rd time, I may go back to it, but only after I've grown something close to it, but maybe a little bit hardier. So but definitely, like, if I've killed it 3 times, I don't think it's the right plant for me.
Give up.
Yeah.
Try again.
Yeah.
Maybe never.
You just have to sometimes trust your gut and make multiples of the plants because they may die, and put something outside that doesn't cost a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah, at first. Just to see,
yeah.
Right?
And actually, so the other funny thing is, when Tom Croat was here and he gave us a talk to the Sydney ASA group, Tom made a really good point that during your plant journey, you should grow things that are easy to grow, because you're not going to get enjoyment from growing something that's hard to grow, that requires, very meticulous growing conditions. You're not going to get any joy from it. So you really should pick something that you love because you love the leaf shape, or you love the color, or something about the plant that you love. And if it grows well, you're going to get far more enjoyment from it.
Yeah, totally. All right, last one. What has been your most treasured memory with our Australian community?
I think connecting with all the different plant growers throughout the country has probably been my most precious memory. A lot of these people, including yourself, Sam, I met through social media, probably during a time, obviously COVID, when there was very little ability to interact with other people.
Totally.
And some of these people that I've met, like Danny, Grace, Dee, Tino, some of these people are going to be my friends for a very long time. And I would have never anticipated that would have been possible just by meeting people with a shared interest online.
Absolutely blows my mind every time I think about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you guys like X amount of years ago. And now we're here and we always see each other, we're always chatting.
Yeah, and especially when you're not even in the same city, Some of my plant friends, you guys are in Melbourne, in Brisbane, mainly Melbourne and Brisbane, far north Queensland as well, in Cairns. I would have never anticipated that I would have been able to build a connection, with these plant growers, and then also visit their gardens and be so welcomed into their gardens. I think that has been such a precious memory, I would have never thought that, at the start of my plant journey, that I would be so lucky and so privileged to have all these opportunities.
Amen.
Yeah.
Oh my God, amen. I feel you so hard on that.
So, show you the rugosum outside, because I forgot to show you that. It's actually here.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
how could we have missed it?
So it's actually being dwarfed by the Monstera, but that's Philodendron rugosum.
That's not the aberrant form, it's the other one.
No, it's the normal form, I guess, yeah. I would actually say this is probably top 3 philodendrons that grow out here. I would say number 1 would be the Jose Bueno, number 2 would be the Ilmanii, and this is probably number 3. It's just being covered by this giant Aurea Monstera, which is probably why it's not growing super well, but at the start, it was doing so well. So I would say that this probably does better outside.
Than inside.
Yeah. This probably does better outside and really cold hardy.
I love that. So that pretty much wraps up the tour, but thank you so
That's
much.
right. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And this is not your very first time on this channel. So
No, it's not.
I'm sure everyone is like, oh yes, we've seen you before. So I just wanted to say thank you so much.
No, that's all right. Thanks, Sam.
So make sure to follow Brendon, and your, again, Instagram handle is?
At Brendon's Plants.
That's it. So make sure to follow and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next one. Bye. So cute.
Oh, thank you.